Before we start, just a quick reminder to hit that subscribe button. Only 2% are subscribed at 1,000 subscribers. I'll be posting a special video. My phone buzzed at work with a message from Ethan. I'm Mark, 34, and that buzz basically detonated everything. He had sent a screenshot from our company chat, no explanation. At the top was my wife's name and the words resignation accepted. For a second, I thought he was messing with me on purpose. I opened the image and zoomed in like that would change it. HR thanked her for her time and confirmed her immediate departure. No notice period, no transition plan, just clean break corporate language. My chest tightened hard enough that I actually checked my watch. I kept thinking there had to be another Mark with a wife. Ethan typed before I could ask anything, his bubble already waiting. Dude, your wife just walked out, what the hell is happening? He added that she had handed over her badge and laptop. He said she announced she was done being treated like trash. My palms went damp on the keyboard, and every noise felt louder. I tried calling her right there, my headset still on halfway. The call rang twice, then dumped straight to her cheerful voicemail greeting. I hung up without leaving a message, my tongue felt heavy. Text then, maybe she was driving or crying or something like that. You okay? I wrote, did you really quit just now? No answer. 3 dots blinked for a moment, then disappeared like she changed her mind. I stared at that empty screen until my eyes started burning. I sent another message asking if she was safe and alone. The dots never returned, and my stomach kept dropping in slow steps. I wish I could say I focused on work after that. In reality, I half-typed emails while replaying every argument about overtime. I remembered her saying she hated mornings and meetings and fake smiles. Back then I treated that like normal complaining, nothing close to mutiny. Now every small complaint stacked up into one solid red flag. My manager asked a simple question about a report, and I froze. He repeated it with a slight frown, and I lied immediately. Yeah, almost done, I said, just waiting on one more number. My voice shook a little, enough that he glanced at my monitor. I angled the phone away like it might confess what I hid. In my head, I started doing math with no numbers in front. One income gone, rent still due, groceries still needed, life still expensive. We were not drowning yet, but the tide felt suddenly higher. I kept telling myself maybe they misunderstood and she would clear it. That hope was thin, but I clung to it like duct tape. When my shift finally ended, I barely remembered the last 2 hours. I walked to the car on autopilot, jaw tight enough to hurt. The sun hit my face and I actually flinched like leaving a cave. I checked my phone again before starting the engine, still nothing from her. I drove home with my mind racing faster than the actual traffic. On the way, I argued with her out loud inside the car. I told myself I would stay calm and just ask questions first. Then I imagined her laughing it off, and my temper spiked again. Then I imagined her crying, and the anger collapsed into something guilty. By the time I parked, I had rehearsed 5 totally different speeches. The apartment door was unlocked when I turned the handle, which bothered me. Her shoes were in the hallway, kicked off like any regular afternoon. For a split second, I thought maybe HR had overreacted or something. Then I saw her on the couch, legs up, scrolling on her phone. She looked relaxed, and that contrast hit me harder than the screenshot. She glanced up once, then went right back to whatever clip was playing. Hey, you're home early. No apology, no shock, just a casual greeting and a tiny smile. It felt like walking into a movie where everyone knew the script already. I stood there too long, and even she finally noticed something was off. Did you quit your job today? I did not dress it up, I just dropped the question. Her eyes flicked to my phone, then to my face, then away. She set the phone down slowly, buying time with that tiny gesture. Okay, so yeah, she said, I did, and I feel great. That word hit me wrong, great, like we had just won something huge. I stepped closer, trying not to raise my voice right away. You quit and you didn't tell me first, not even a hint. She gave this little shrug like we were talking about changing shampoo brands. If I'd warned you, you would have talked me out of it. I am not proud of my first reaction after that line. I laughed short and harsh because it sounded so childish to me. So that was the plan, I said, just cut me out completely. She crossed her arms, chin up, like I had proved her whole theory. You never listen when I say how miserable I am at that place. The thing is, she was not wrong about that last part. I had tuned out plenty of rants because I was tired myself. Sitting there in front of her, I still felt cornered and blindsided. There is a difference between missing hints and hiding nuclear decisions, though. I kept my voice low, but every word came out like it scraped. When did you decide this? I asked, each word careful and slow. Today, yesterday, last month. When exactly did quitting become your secret project? She looked toward the kitchen, jaw moving like she wanted to chew the air. It has been building for a while, she said, but today I snapped. She grabbed a throw pillow like a shield, even though she kept talking. She explained how her boss dumped another project on her without extra pay. How a coworker took credit in a meeting while she sat there simmering. How she felt invisible and exhausted and done with the whole grind. I heard all of that, and some part of me understood the rage. The other part watched our future collapse into unpaid bills and late notices. Quitting without a backup does not just affect you, I said quietly. I pointed toward the hall where our bedroom and everything shared actually lived. This is both of us, every bill, every plan, every single thing. She rolled her eyes at the word bill like I had said cage. I know that, she said. I am not planning to sit here useless. I wish she had stopped there, honestly, because that line was survivable. We could have pivoted into job hunting and resumes and short-term panic. Instead, she pushed forward with the part she had clearly rehearsed already. I want to focus on our home now and on content creation. I want the soft life, full-time homemaker, full-time creator, no more office. The phrase soft life sounded ridiculous in that small living room. I had never heard her say it out loud before that minute. She said it like it was a brand, like something she could order. My brain went straight to our bank account, not to vision boards. I remembered the packages arriving lately, the tripod, the ring light, the planner. Suddenly those purchases did not look random or harmless anymore, not even a little. They lined up into a plan she had never brought to the table. How long have you wanted this? I asked, my throat suddenly very dry. She hesitated just long enough to make my stomach twist again in place. A while, she said. I follow these women who make it work beautifully. There it was, the invisible chorus I had not noticed at all. Strangers in her phone cheering on a life I was supposed to fund. I felt petty thinking that, and also completely furious at the same time. Those women show highlight reels, I said. They do not send us rent money. She looked at me like I had just insulted her closest friends directly. I knew you would react like this, she said, voice going flat and cold. Always worst case, always numbers, never how I actually feel about anything. That one hit because it sounded like a script she believed deeply. Part of me wanted to defend myself with examples of support and effort. The rest of me just saw our budget shredded by one fearless, impulsive move. I sat down across from her because my legs felt shaky and unreliable. Up close I could see she was still buzzing with adrenaline and relief. She was proud of herself, that was the wild part underneath everything. I realized I had shown up prepared for regret, not victory dancing energy. It made every careful sentence I had rehearsed in the car completely useless. Look, I said, I'm not saying you have to suffer forever. I spread my hands because I did not know where to put them. But you promised we would talk before any huge shift like this one. She hugged the pillow tighter, eyes wet, but she never looked away once. This is me talking, she answered. This is me finally choosing my life. In that moment, I honestly thought we were just having one brutal fight. I believed we would cry and yell, and then regroup around a compromise. I thought maybe she would freelance or find another job or something workable. I told myself we were just shocked and that tomorrow would look different. I had no idea that this was the last day our life still resembled normal. I flipped my laptop open on the kitchen table and pulled our bank app. Come sit, I said, we need to look at numbers right now. She drifted in with a drink in her hand and that loose posture. No rush, no apology, just that easy stroll that felt like mocking. I already knew this talk would not stay calm for long. The main account loaded, and my throat tightened before I said anything. The balance was lower than I expected, and the upcoming charges glared back. Okay, I started, tapping the screen. This is what we actually have left. She sat opposite, leaned back, and unlocked her phone with a quick swipe. Her screen lit up with a paused video titled something about soft living. I watched her thumb hover over the play button, and something snapped inside. Can you please put that away for 10 minutes? I asked, trying for steady. She sighed, locked it, and slid it upside down with exaggerated patience. Fine, she said, walk me through the disaster since you look spooked. I hated that word because she was not wrong about how I looked. I pulled a notepad closer and wrote the total at the top in big digits. Under it, I listed housing, utilities, groceries, my car payment, her phone plan. These hit every month, I said, tapping each line with the pen tip. Your paycheck is gone now, so everything lands on mine until we adjust. She watched my hand, not my face, and nodded like this was a lecture. We are not destitute, she said, lifting her drink for a tiny sip. You act like we live in a tent on the highway or something. I felt heat crawl up my neck at the word act, like I performed fear. This is not theater, I said, this is literally what we can cover. I circled the number left over after bills, and it was embarrassingly small. That leftover amount sat there between us like a dare we both understood. No extras, I said, no trips, no gadgets, nothing for a while. She frowned at the page like the ink offended her personally somehow. This is why I did not tell you before, she answered, voice tight now. You always jump straight to scarcity, never to possibilities or solutions. I bit down on my first response because it was ugly and cheap. Instead, I pulled another page and wrote a quick rough plan for the year. If you want to try creating content seriously, fine, we treat it like business. You set income goals, timelines, whatever, so I am not flying blind here. Even while I said it, I knew I sounded like a manager, not a spouse. Her face hardened at the word goals like I had spit out a threat. I just walked away from a boss who treated me like a machine, she said. I am not about to sit here and fill out performance charts for you. She pushed her chair back an inch, enough for the legs to scrape loud. That sound went through me worse than the actual words in that moment. Then what exactly is the plan? I asked, the pen still in my fingers. Because this, I pointed at the shrinking number, does not stretch by itself. She crossed her arms, shoulders climbing, eyes locked on mine without blinking. You always talked about wanting to be the rock for our family, she said. Well, congratulations, here is your chance to actually be that. I laughed once sharp because the flip in that sentence was brutal. So my role now is permanent emergency backup, and yours is what exactly? She gestured around the apartment like the answer was obvious and already finished. I manage home, I handle content, I build something bigger than another paycheck. The confidence in her mouth did not match the emptiness of our balance. I opened the credit card tab and my heart dropped another inch when it loaded. Recent charges lined up from the last few weeks and new patterns appeared fast. Lighting equipment, editing software, subscription to some creator academy, plus random decor orders. I stared at the total for a second too long, long enough for her to notice. If this is about my purchases, they are investments, not splurges, she said. Investments need returns, I answered, pushing the laptop slightly toward her side. Right now they are just debts that I will be paying off alone. She recoiled at that word alone like I had accused her of theft. We share everything, she said, hand flattening on the table between us. Unless you secretly moved into a separate life I do not know about. That jab landed because a part of me did want that distance already. Not divorce, not yet, just 1 week where our accounts were not joined. I took a breath and tried a different angle before things escalated further. What about part-time, somewhere flexible while you build this online thing? The second the words left my mouth, I knew I had triggered something. Her chair scraped again as she stood, palms pressing into the table edge hard. So you do not respect what I am trying to build, not even slightly. You want me to crawl back into some random job just so you chill. I got up too fast, the chair tipping a little before thudding back upright. We were suddenly closer than we needed to be for a money discussion. I respect effort, I said, voice low now because shouting felt pointless here. quitting without a safety net and calling it a brand is not effort. Her mouth parted like she had been slapped, and for a second she said nothing. Then she grabbed her phone from the table and unlocked it with jerky movements. These women did the same thing and now support entire families, she muttered. She opened one of those feeds and held it out for me like evidence. Perfect counters, smiling babies, husbands kissing cheeks, captions about feminine rest and abundance. I glanced, then looked away because that world felt so far from ours. This is marketing, I said. They are selling a dream to people like you. She snatched the phone back like I had grabbed. It eyes glossy now. You sound jealous and bitter right now, not rational, she threw back. Other men step up so their partners can thrive at home and online. There it was, the comparison I had not heard out loud until that night. My chest clenched in a new way, not from money this time, from pride. Do you even want me, I asked, or do you just want that script? She stared at me for a long beat, breathing fast, knuckles white on her glass. I want a partner who believes in me, not a walking calculator, she answered. The phrase walking calculator burned worse than anything she had called me before. I knew I leaned hard on numbers when I got scared, that was true. Still, hearing my fear turned into an insult flipped some stubborn switch inside. Fine, I said, dragging the laptop back toward my side of the table. I will cover what I can, but we cut everything that is not survival. Streaming services, delivery, subscription boxes, all that goes until we see progress. Her jaw dropped like I had just announced some kind of punishment schedule. So you get to police my comfort because you are scared of overdraft, she asked. It is not about comfort, it is about not drowning 6 months from now. My voice rose on drowning before I caught myself and forced it lower. I pointed again at the numbers like they could back me up in court. We already run tight with 2 incomes, now we lost one completely overnight. Saying it out loud like that made the room feel smaller and heavier. She stared at the notebook, then at me, and I could see the split. Half of her looked worried for a second, half dug in even deeper. This is temporary, she said, nodding to herself more than to me. You will see once my channel takes off, we will laugh about tonight. Hearing her talk like success was guaranteed made my stomach flip hard. I closed the laptop with a soft click that somehow sounded final in my head. We are done for now, I said, because I felt one sentence away from saying something unforgivable. She scooped up her drink and her phone and left the table without another word. I watched her walk down the hallway, already opening another video as she went. That was the moment I realized we were not just arguing about money anymore. My card bounced at the grocery store on a Tuesday night. The cashier tried again, that polite tight smile people use for small disasters. Do you have another form of payment? I forced a laugh, pulled out the credit card and prayed it cleared. It went through, but my face was already burning all the way out. In the car, I opened our banking app before starting the engine. The checking account balance had a tiny minus sign in front of it. 2 automatic charges had hit the same day, plus one more I did not recognize. A recent payment to some creator platform sat near the top of the list. I stared at that single line so long my vision started to blur. I scrolled down and saw transfer after transfer leaving our main account. Not huge by themselves, just steady, like little bites taken every couple days. Gear rentals, editing tools, more courses with names about scaling digital brands. Under that, the rent payments scheduled for Friday, already marked as pending. That was the moment my hands started shaking on the steering wheel. I drove home slower than usual, not out of caution, just stunned. My brain kept throwing numbers at me while I watched traffic lights change. For every charge, I mentally crossed out something we used to do together. Takeout nights, movie tickets, anything that was not strictly survival-level spending. By the time I pulled into our spot, my jaw actually hurt from clenching. Inside, music drifted from the living room, plus her bright talking voice. I stopped in the hallway and watched from the doorway without announcing myself. She was in front of her phone, talking about routines and intentional living. Her tone was cheerful, confident, like she had been doing this for years. Hearing that version of her, knowing our account was negative, made my stomach twist. She wrapped up the recording and hit stop with a satisfied little nod. Only then did she notice me by the doorway with my work bag still on. Hey, she smiled, I think this one is really going to connect. I dropped my keys on the table harder than I meant to. Our bank account is below zero, I said, that connected first. Her expression flickered just for a second, then smoothed back into calm. Okay, she exhaled, that happens sometimes when timing is off on autopay. She picked up her phone and checked the app like it was a minor glitch. You get paid Friday, it will even out in a couple days. My pulse spiked at how casual she sounded while the screen glared red. This is not a rounding error, I answered, stepping closer to show her. Rent is about to hit, and we are already in the negative. She leaned in, lips pressed together, eyes darting over. The numbers. All right, she said slowly, I did not expect it to drop that fast. That last word stuck in my head, like she was talking about followers. I pointed to the cluster of platform charges from the last 10 days. These are all from your new projects, I said, tapping each one. I am not saying you cannot try this, but you cannot ignore reality. She pulled the phone back and locked it, as if that solved anything. I need tools if I want this to work, she answered, voice tight now. You also need electricity and a roof, I shot back before I could stop myself. As soon as it left my mouth, I knew it sounded harsh and cheap. She flinched, then straightened, chin high like she was bracing for a hit. You talk like I am out here playing games with your paycheck. The word "your" landed like a slap because that was not how I saw it. That is our money, I said, softer, trying to pull things back from the edge. Our names are on every bill, not just mine, not just yours. She rolled her eyes toward the ceiling, arms folding across her chest. You keep saying our, she said, but you act like the gatekeeper of everything. Hearing the word gatekeeper out loud made something drop in my chest. The next day the calls started. First was a friendly reminder from the utility company, right in the middle of lunch. I took it outside, listening to the scripted concern about a missed payment. I will handle it, I promised, even though I had no idea which account to use. I hung up and realized my hands were trembling harder than yesterday. Later that evening, her phone rang with an unknown number while we ate. She glanced once, flipped it over, and kept scrolling through her feed. You might want to answer that, I said, nodding toward the buzzing rectangle. If it is important, they will leave a message, she replied, chewing slowly. The voicemail that followed was another overdue reminder, and my appetite disappeared. To stay ahead, I picked up extra hours whenever my manager offered them. Evenings, weekends, anything that came with a bit of overtime attached. I told myself it was temporary, just until her projects started generating something. In reality, I was dragging myself out of bed with a knot already forming. At night, I would come home exhausted and hear her recording about rest. One night, I walked in late and found her rearranging the living room again. Another piece of equipment stood where our small bookcase used to be. That was not cheap, I said, dropping my work bag by the door. It was on sale and this will upgrade my whole setup, she replied, focused. I touched the monthly statement in my pocket and felt my jaw lock. I tried to talk schedules instead of money, hoping it would go better. If I work weekends, that means I am not here when you film, I explained. Maybe we alternate so we actually see each other sometimes. She shrugged, adjusting the tripod angle, eyes fixed on the screen. This is my job now, she said, your schedule just needs to support it. There it was again, that word support thrown like a measuring stick at my forehead. Back then I heard it as an accusation, not a request for partnership. Now thinking back, I can admit my tone did not help much either. I got defensive, I snapped, I dug in because I felt cornered constantly. Every conversation felt like proof that I was failing some invisible husband exam. The moment everything tipped for real started over something small and stupid. I was looking for a receipt for our taxes a few weeks later. Her tablet lay on the couch, unlocked, with a document open that I needed. I picked it up, intending to search the email app for our accountant thread. A notification banner slid across the top before I could even type. The preview showed a group chat name I did not recognize at all. Under it, a line from her friend popped up asking, "How is Mr. Control Freak today?" My stomach lurched so hard I almost dropped the tablet on the floor. I should have put it down right then, I know that. Instead, I tapped the message and opened the whole thread with my thumb. Her messages filled the screen, long blocks I had never seen in real life. She called me suffocating, stingy, obsessed with financial power over her. She wrote that I watched every transaction like a prison guard on payroll. According to those texts, I belittled her dreams and treated her like dead weight. Reading those lines felt like watching someone describe a stranger wearing my face. The chat history stretched back weeks, each day another detailed complaint. She told them I had banned her from spending anything on herself. She claimed I threatened to cut off access if she did not obey my rules. In one message, she joked that I was basically her unpaid accountant and warden. The laughing emojis around that line made my vision go hot and fuzzy. Her friends piled in under each message with their own commentary. One urged her to stay firm and not bow to my financial control tactics. Another said men like me only understand consequences and withheld affection. Someone else suggested she hide a separate account that I could never touch. They ended one thread with, "Remember, you deserve to be kept, not managed." That last sentence hit me straight in the spine. Kept. Not partnered, not teamed, not equal, just maintained like a lifestyle accessory. I sat down slowly, tablet resting on my knees, scrolling even though it hurt. I wanted to stop, but curiosity and anger kept dragging my thumb downward. In one recent exchange, she bragged about turning down a part-time opportunity. "A job is a step backward," she wrote. "I am manifesting full financial surrender from him." I read that line 3 times because I could not process the wording. Financial surrender. Like this was a battle she planned to win, not a marriage we both lived in. My heart pounded so loud, I barely heard the front door open behind me. She came in humming, holding a small shopping bag, cheeks flushed from the outside air. I locked the tablet and set it aside so fast I almost slipped. "Hey," she called out. I grabbed a few things for a haul video. I could still feel the imprint of that phrase, financial surrender, in my head. "Did you find the receipt you needed?" She dropped the bag by the couch, eyes flicking toward the tablet. "Not yet," I answered, standing, trying to keep my voice neutral enough. I watched her gaze linger on the device for half a second too long. That tiny pause told me she knew exactly what might be visible there. She scooped up the tablet with a quick, practiced motion and hugged it close. "Careful with this," she said lightly, "my whole business is in here." I nodded, pretending that word business did not grate across my nerves. In my pocket, my phone buzzed with another low balance alert I ignored. On the outside, I kept breathing, but inside something had finally cracked. That night after she fell asleep, I lay awake staring at the ceiling. The phrases from her group chat replayed in my head like a loop. Control freak. Prison guard. Financial surrender. I reached for my phone and opened our banking app one more time. Then I opened my camera and scrolled to the screenshots I had taken earlier. Yeah, I saved them, even though that makes me look sneaky and cold. At the time it felt like self-defense, proof that I was not insane. I did not know yet that those images would follow us into a tiny therapy office. I dropped the folder on the low table and it fanned open. Our therapist glanced at it, then at me, then at her. My wife froze with her hand midair, fingers still gripping her cup. "What's that supposed to be?" My chest felt tight, and I knew this session would not stay calm. "I printed some things," I answered, keeping my gaze on the folder. "Stuff I found on your tablet that I cannot unsee." Her head snapped toward me so fast the cushion shifted under her. "You went through my device." The therapist lifted a hand, not touching the papers yet, just circling the moment. "Can we slow down right here?" the therapist said, voice low and steady. "Mark, what did you bring today, and what are you hoping for?" I swallowed, dug my fingers into my knees, and pushed the folder forward. "Messages," I said, "her chat with friends about me and our money." Even saying it out loud made my face heat with a mix of shame and anger. My wife reached for the folder first, but the therapist laid a hand over it. "1 second," the therapist said, looking between us like a referee before a bell. "I will read if you both agree this belongs in the room." "I do," I answered immediately, too fast, like I had been waiting weeks. Across from me, my wife exhaled through her nose and gave a small nod. The therapist opened the folder and started scanning the first page. Silence stretched, broken only by the faint ticking from somewhere behind me. My wife shifted next to me, crossing one leg over the other and bouncing it. I watched the therapist's eyes move line by line, jaw tightening just slightly. When she flipped to the second sheet, my wife finally cracked. "This is unreal," my wife burst out, leaning forward with both hands clenched. "You printed my private conversations and dragged them into therapy." I flinched at the word private, even though I had expected that exact reaction. "Those conversations are about me," I said, forcing my voice to stay level. "You built a whole version of me there that I do not recognize." The therapist held up one page, not enough for us to read again. "Let me check something," she said, eyes on my wife now. "In these messages, you describe feeling controlled through finances and access." She did not repeat the insults, and I was grateful for that small mercy. "Is that how it feels to you most of the time?" My wife stared at the carpet, then back at the therapist, avoiding my face. "Yeah," she answered, voice smaller than at home, "I feel watched all the time. If I buy anything, he reacts like I stole rent money from his pocket." That stung because part of it was honest enough to hurt. Still, hearing it without context made me sound like some cartoon villain. "Can I respond?" I asked, palms open, because I wanted to jump in already. The therapist nodded, pen ready over her small notebook near her knee. "I checked our accounts because we were close to missing payments again. I saw a lot of charges I did not expect, then I found those messages." I glanced at the folder, my throat tight, remembering every line that called me controlling. The therapist tapped the pages lightly, then set them back on the table. "So we have two things happening," she said, counting on her fingers slowly. "She feels monitored and judged, you feel misrepresented and sidelined. Both feel unsafe, just in different ways." She let that hang there, and I hated how accurate it sounded. My wife turned toward me, eyes sharp now, shoulders squared like before a fight. "If you had a problem with how I vented, you could have asked me. You did not have to spy and then collect evidence like a prosecutor." I wanted to fire back that I had no chance to explain myself there. Instead, I dug my nails into my palm and tasted metal at the back of my tongue. "I did not trust talking anymore," I finally said, staring at the rug. "Every time we argued about spending, I left feeling like the villain in your story. I needed to know if I was actually that bad or if something else was going on." I pointed at the folder without touching it. "Those screenshots were the only place you were honest about me." Her laugh came out short and sharp, more pain than humor. "Honest," she repeated, shaking her head. "Yeah, I was honest there because I felt safe. I did not expect my husband to raid my messages like he was doing an audit." The therapist leaned forward a little, elbows on her knees now. "What did you hope your friends would give you there?" she asked gently. "Support," my wife answered, covering her face with both hands for a second. I needed people who would understand that leaving my job was huge for me. At home, it felt like I had to justify every breath that did not earn a paycheck. That sentence hit me square in the chest because it sounded so far from my intention. I wanted security, she heard suffocation, and that gap had turned into a canyon. The therapist turned to me again, eyes steady, voice calm but firm. "When you read those words about yourself, what landed the hardest?" I hesitated because saying it again felt like handing her a weapon. "That she wants full financial surrender from me," I finally answered. "And that to her friends, I am basically a walking wallet with rules." My wife winced at that phrase, even though she had written it herself. "I was exaggerating," she said quickly, hands flying up in the air. "People rant in chats, that does not mean I literally think you are a wallet." Something in me snapped at the word exaggerating, like she had shrugged off a punch. "You asked them to tell you how to break my resistance," I shot back. The therapist cut in before the next wave hit, voice sharper than before. "Pause," she said, holding up a palm, "we are not here to score points." She looked at both of us in turn, eyes hard but not unkind. "I want to understand the unspoken agreement you each thought you had about money. Because right now, it sounds like you were living in two different contracts." That word contract landed heavier than anything else that hour. I leaned back, suddenly aware of how rigid I had been in the chair. What do you mean by agreement? I asked, even though I sort of knew. She turned to my wife first, giving her space to answer before me. When you pictured your future, what did you imagine your role would be? My wife took a long breath, chest rising and falling once twice before speaking. I always wanted to take care of home and whatever family we have. I thought I would eventually focus there full time and help with side projects. I never loved office work, it always felt like a temporary requirement. She looked at me then, eyes wet, like she expected me to already know this. The therapist nodded once, then shifted her attention in my direction. And you, she asked, what version did you assume you were building? I stared at the floor, then at the framed diploma behind her shoulder. I pictured both of us working in some capacity, at least for a long time. I never thought I would be the only earner while she stayed home voluntarily. My wife blinked hard at the phrase only earner, as if it insulted her effort. Staying home is work, she snapped, rubbing her thumb along her wrist. I am building something real online, it is not like I sit and lounge all day. I lifted my hands because I did not actual. Why think she lazed around? It is not about tasks, I said, it is about being able to pay our obligations. The therapist let us clash for another minute, then cut through the noise. Listen to what you both just said, she told us, voice low but intense. One of you expected a joint earning partnership for the foreseeable future. The other expected that at some point she would step back from traditional work. She paused, then asked the question that changed everything for me. Did you two ever sit down and clearly agree on which reality you were choosing? Silence. I glanced at my wife, she glanced at me, and nothing came out. We had talked about vacations, neighborhoods, maybe having kids someday. We had never actually said out loud who would carry what load and for how long. I thought it was obvious, my wife whispered, picking at a loose thread on her sleeve. My mom did more at home, my dad covered most of the bills. I just assumed we were heading toward something like that as life moved on. I felt something inside me twist because I had never seen that as our roadmap. In my mind, we were teammates, both bringing in income until we chose otherwise together. The therapist watched both our faces, then leaned back with a small sigh. So that is the core, she said, tapping her notebook with the cap of her pen. You quit your job in line with the script you had in your mind. You expected him to step fully into his provider role without question. But he never explicitly signed up for that script. That last sentence sat between us like a weight on the table. My wife shook her head, eyes shining with a mix of hurt and pride. He always said he wanted to take care of me, she insisted. I swallowed because I remembered saying things like that early on. I meant emotionally, practically, not that I would single-handedly fund your lifestyle forever. The therapist lifted a brow at the phrase fund your lifestyle and made a small note. You hear how that sounds, she asked me gently, not accusing, just curious. I closed my eyes for a second because it sounded harsh outside my head. I am angry, I admitted, voice rough, and when I am angry I sound like a landlord, not a husband. Owning that out loud made my stomach drop, but it was also weirdly relieving. My wife sniffed once, wiped under one eye and straightened her shoulders again. I may have painted you in a nasty light to my friends, she said. I was scared you would never understand how drained I felt by that old job. I should not have turned you into some cartoon villain for comfort. Hearing that admission should have made me feel vindicated, but it mostly made me tired. The therapist looked from her to me, then down at the folder one more time. I am not asking you to forgive each other in this hour, she said. What I want you to see is that you launched a huge life change without shared consent. One of you felt cornered into funding it, the other felt entitled to it. That mismatch will keep poisoning everything until you address the actual agreement underneath. On the drive home later, we barely spoke, both staring straight ahead. Her hands were knotted in her lap, mine were too tight on the wheel. The therapist's question kept echoing the whole way back. Did you ever actually agree on this? The worst part was knowing the honest answer sat somewhere between no and we never even tried. It took 3 months before I sat in a leasing office alone. The pen rested in my hand while my pulse hammered in my ears. Month to month or full year. The manager waited, watching me over the contract. I knew whichever box I checked meant the marriage was basically over. Year, I answered, surprising myself with how clear it sounded. If I gave us an easy exit, I knew I would crawl back. The manager nodded, slid the keys across the desk, and wished me luck. I slipped them into my pocket like they were heavier than metal. On the drive back, every mile felt like I was rehearsing a breakup. When I walked into the apartment, she was mid-video again. Her voice floated from the living room, bright, talking about resetting your space. I leaned against the door until she rapped and hit stop with a tap. Can we talk when you're done recording? My tone came out flatter than I intended, which got her attention. She turned the camera off fully and rested it on the stand. That sounded ominous, she said, arms folding almost automatically. No audience, I answered, nodding toward the powered-down device. What I need to say is not for your channel. Even before we started, I saw her posture shift, defensive, ready for impact. I signed a lease this morning. No build-up, no warm-up, I just dropped it between us. Her mouth opened, then closed, like the words short-circuited for a second. You got a place. Her voice went thin, almost quiet, and that scared me more than yelling. Yeah, I said. Hands in my pockets so she would not see them tremble. A small one across town, close to work enough for me. She stared at me like I had just spoken another language completely. So that is it, she asked, you are leaving instead of trying harder. That hit in a way I could not laugh off or ignore. We have been trying, I answered, fighting the urge to pace the room. Therapy, budgets, endless arguments, nothing changes the core mismatch. You want someone who funds everything while you build your dream full-time. I want someone who builds with me, even if we hate our jobs sometimes. Saying it that bluntly made my stomach knot, but it was true. She moved around the couch, putting furniture between us like a barricade. So I am lazy now, that is the story you're going with. I did not call you lazy, I said, rubbing my forehead with my thumb. I am saying I cannot keep playing the villain in your narrative. Those messages, the comments about me, they broke something I cannot repair. Her jaw tightened, eyes shining, hands gripping the couch back so hard. I apologized for those messages, she said, breathing fast. I own that in therapy. I told you I exaggerated because I felt cornered and unheard. You kept those screenshots anyway, you cling to them like a trophy. She was not entirely wrong, and that was the worst part. Maybe I did cling to them, I admitted, exhaling like air hurt. They reminded me I was not insane when I felt painted as a monster. But the bigger problem is still the same question from the therapist. Did we ever actually agree you would stop working and I would cover everything? Her silence after that question felt louder than any insult. She looked away, then back, then away again, fingers tapping the couch edge. I thought you meant it when you called yourself the provider, she muttered. I thought I could finally focus at home and on something that excites me. I did not think you would make me feel like a dependent child. That last phrase punched through my chest in both directions. Do you hear yourself? I asked, stepping closer, careful not looming. You quit without a word, spent like we had 3 incomes, hid messages about me. Then you are shocked I started treating numbers like a live wire. I shook my head, feeling that old defensive heat rise again. I am not saying you are a child, I am saying I feel used. Her face crumpled for a second, then hardened right back into steel. So your solution is to abandon the marriage instead of renegotiating. We could set timelines, goals, anything, but you chose an apartment instead. For what it is worth, I did consider that, I answered, shoulders sagging. I do not trust that any deadline would mean anything after this year. She sank onto the couch, elbows on her knees, fingers pressed to her lips. Where am I supposed to go? She asked, voice dull now, not angry. The question landed heavy because I had already guessed the answer earlier. We still have 2 months on this lease paid, I replied, sitting across from her. We can split the time, take turns staying here if you want that. She shook her head immediately, hair brushing her cheek with the motion. I am not bouncing around so you can play bachelor on the weekends. I will go back to my parents for a while, they offered after everything. I nodded slowly, even though a part of me stung at that choice. They had always thought I was too strict about money, now they had proof. We will divide the furniture later, I said, hating how cold that sounded. Today I just wanted to tell you before boxes show up out of nowhere. She laughed short, bitter, wiping under one eye with the heel of her hand. That is thoughtful, she said, thanks for the breakup courtesy. I could not even argue, because in some ways that was exactly what this was. 2 days later, she was packing her things while I stayed quiet. Clothes, some decor, all the content gear stacked near the hallway. I focused on practical tasks, canceling shared subscriptions, updating addresses. It felt like dismantling a life in slow motion, piece by labeled piece. Every completed task made the breakup more real. While she sorted the last drawer, something small clinked against the tabletop. Her ring sliding out of a pouch, rolling until it stopped between us. We both froze, watching it sit there like some tiny judgment. You can keep it, she said, not touching it, eyes on my face instead. I cannot wear it while still figuring out if I even want marriage. That is not how it works, I answered, pushing it gently back toward her. It is yours, no matter what happens with us right now. She looked at it, then curled her fingers around the band without putting it on. I will hold on to it then, she whispered, until I feel like someone's partner again. That line cut deep, because I did not know if she meant me or some future guy. Age. Her parents pulled up that afternoon, and suddenly time sped up. They hugged her, lifted boxes, barely glanced at me beyond polite greetings. To them, I was the man who refused to bankroll their daughter's dream. I helped carry stuff to the car anyway, because I did not know what else to do. At the trunk, her mom gave me a look that said everything without words. Take care of yourself, her dad muttered, clapping my shoulder once quick. I nodded, though my throat felt blocked and useless. My wife stood by the passenger door, purse strap wrapped tight in her fist. We will talk, she said, avoiding promises, avoiding timelines, avoiding everything concrete. I am not ready to decide if this is a pause or the end. I cannot live like it is a pause, I answered, leaning against the door frame. I need to act like it is real, or I will keep waiting and shrinking. The honesty surprised both of us, I think. She blinked rapidly, then stepped forward and hugged me around the middle. For a second, my body remembered every ordinary morning we ever had. Then she let go, climbed into the car, and closed the door. They drove off, and I stood in the parking lot until they vanished. When I finally went back upstairs, the apartment felt strangely off balance. Her art was gone, her setup gone, the place looked half-finished. I realized how many things had been hers, holding the space together. That night I moved my packed boxes to the new place. The new apartment smelled like fresh paint and old dust, nothing familiar. I dropped the mattress on the frame and sat down, shoes still on. The silence pressed in heavy, but also weirdly peaceful. For the first time in months, no one was recording anything within earshot. I opened my laptop on the floor and checked my accounts again. One rent, one set of utilities, no mysterious platform charges stacked together. The numbers were still tight, but not suffocating, not chaotic. Relief washed through me first, quick, followed by guilt right behind it. What kind of person feels lighter the day his wife moves out? I clicked over to a browser and, out of habit, typed her channel name. Her latest upload thumbnail showed a caption about starting over from scratch. I hovered over it, watched the preview bar load, then closed the tab. Maybe that was cowardly, but I did not trust myself to watch without spiraling. She had her audience to process with now, I needed somewhere else. Which is how I ended up here, writing this from the mattress edge. New keys on the floor, half my life in boxes, phone buzzing sometimes. I do not know if this is separation, divorce, or some weird intermission. What I know is that she wanted freedom from responsibility, and I wanted a teammate. So this is my update, typed in a very quiet apartment, waiting to see what strangers think of the mess I helped create.